Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Primetime Alberta Sports Show, brought to you by Amateur Sports TV. My name is JD Hott, and I will be filling in for Andrew tonight. Lauren Barr will be stopping by. Lauren is the president of the Slave Lake Icedogs of the Greater Metro Junior A Hockey League. Tonight, Lauren and I will be talking about, obviously, about how COVID has affected their team and their league this year. And also, the league is from out in Ontario. We're going to see how they were able to bring some teams out west into Alberta, how the first 2 years have gone for the Ice Dogs and the other three teams in the league, and just kind of more about what kind of league it is. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. The moment you've all been waiting for. Lauren Barr, everyone. Lauren, thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm well. It's a beautiful day here. I happen to be in Ontario at this time. It's really warm out here, and looking forward for Christmas. What about you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just obviously I have my Christmas sweater on, so in the mood for Christmas. And it's definitely not warm out here right now. It's out here in Saskatchewan where I'm at, but no, getting ready for Christmas as well. So and then hopefully get some hockey back in the new year.
Yes, definitely.
So to start things off, I have to ask you, what is the Greater Metro Junior A Hockey League?
Sure. So the Greater Metro Hockey League is a junior A hockey league that was started in the Toronto area, and that's why it's called the Greater Metro, because most of the teams are in and around Ontario, around Toronto, and now there's also teams in Ottawa area and Quebec. And then as of last season, we started the West Division, which is in the Alberta region. And Derek Prue started the Western Division in association with Bob Russell, the president of GMHL. And the Western Division has the rights for Saskatchewan, BC, and Alberta. So this season, as our second season, we have 4 teams in Alberta. They're very competitive and closely matched. Last season, we were also very blessed to have closely matched games, closely matched teams. There were only 3 teams to start the division. This season, there was an addition of the Fox Creek Ice Kings. And next season, they're looking to have new teams join. They're going to be expanding into the other regions, BC and potentially Saskatchewan. So it's definitely expanding its footprint in the West.
So how about, so kind of explain to me a little bit of how, you mentioned that Derek got the rights for, I guess, Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan. So how does one go about doing that to bring the part of that league out here?
Well, there's definitely a need. So the Greater Metro Hockey League is a Tier 2 Junior A league. So there'll be late bloomer players that weren't streamed when they were, let's say, 10 years old on an elite stream. They might have missed out on having the best coaching or having special attention. These are talented players. These are players that should be playing Junior A. They just needed a little bit more development. In the East, there's lots of leagues for players like this to go, but there weren't leagues like this in the West. So a player, for instance, Larry Yellowknee, his first year of organized hockey was in midget, but he happens to be an exceptional talent. Last season was his first season with the GMHL. He played for the High Prairie Red Wings, and this season he advanced on for a tryout in the East Coast League, which is a step away from the NHL. A huge opportunity he wouldn't have had without our league. He might not have made an AJ team, but by making the GMHL, he was able to receive 4 hours of practice, 4 consecutive practices during the week, games on the weekends, a lot of one-on-one attention that launched him back onto that elite stream. So the GMHL, there was a niche need in Western Canada. Derek saw that need, and he asked the GMHL if they wanted to expand west, and they do. They would like to be national. So The goal for the GMHL is to have teams all across Canada. This season was the first season that we would have been playing for a national title, the Russell Cup, named after Bob Russell. Unfortunately, due to COVID and travel restrictions, we will still be playing for a Division Cup, but next year there'll be a national cup. So as the league expands, we're going to see teams all across Canada. It's exciting to see it expand. And how Derek was able to do that was reaching out to Bob directly and coming to an agreement to help him expand. So Derek's job is international expansion. He is there to foster new growth. So he meets with council in new communities, arranges ice leases, puts together ownership groups, and then helps them along the way with his experience starting teams to kind of get themselves launched, and then they're off and running.
Well, it's definitely nice to have that kind of sort of development league for kids to, and like you said, there may not be that sort of development league like there, that's a step kind of below the, if kids weren't able to make an SJ or an MJ or an AJHL team or BCHL team, if they have that opportunity to play in that league, which is great. So, and I imagine that you're getting kids from like all around, obviously Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan, to come play for your team. So what would your recruiting area look like?
That's a really good question. So in my first season, a lot of our players came right around the Slave Lake area. These were players that didn't have an opportunity, like you said, to play for the AJ or the MJ, but they were skilled hockey players. And it's unfortunate that they didn't have those opportunities because they really had the ability to advance. For example, Austin Mood Flag, he lived in Slave Lake and he was playing senior at the time in High Prairie. They had a team that since folded. It was called the High Prairie Regals. And senior, as we know, is kind of a last step. It's playing hockey for the enjoyment, but you're not going to advance onto a pro or college scholarship. When the Slave Lake Icedogs came to town, he tried out for the team, made it. He received the Bill Clark Memorial Scholarship. After playing last season, he got an opportunity to play for an ACHA Div 1 team, Waldorf University, on a hockey scholarship and is enrolled in business. So it certainly gave him new opportunity that he wouldn't have had. So we started in and around the Slave Lake area. The reason being is the GMHL was new to Albertans. They didn't know what it was, and it was easier for them to give it a chance to play for their hometown team. I had one international player last season, Daniil Babchuk, who's fantastic. He won the Hart Award from the GMHL. He also went on to play last season in the GMHL All-Star Game. He would like to be playing pro. He was my only international player. I did have some players from the Calgary area, but I think all around Alberta predominantly. This season, with our recruiting efforts off season, I was able to attract about 19 new players outside of Alberta. I had players from the Northwest Territories, a lot of skilled players from Saskatchewan, amazing talent there. We have 2 players from BC, 2 players from the United States, and I also had attracted quite a few European players, which a number of them actually did try to enter the country and were unsuccessful. So our team right now is made up of, I would say, mostly Albertans, a lot of Saskatchewan players, a couple BC, a couple US. We had Daniil on our team, which we since traded him. But that's kind of the footprint of our team. And what I'm seeing is a lot of the Ontario kids are playing in the GMHL or maybe the UPSHL in this kind of genre of play. And then now we're attracting a lot of players from Saskatchewan, and we're kind of newly entering the BC market. And I would say that there's so much skill and so much need for this development. It's interesting to see who we get and what happens along the way.
Well, and with however many SJ teams and BCH, they so many guys, and there's still skilled, talented players out there that can play at a high level and want to play at a high level. Either if it's go to college or, play pro hockey, play in the ECHL, play in the AHL. It's great to see that, that there's been steps towards more development leagues in Western Canada to create that for a lot of young kids.
Also interesting to note, with our GMHL West Division, I'd say about 50% of our players are First Nations. There is an incredible amount of talent in First Nations communities. A lot of the players don't want to leave their community, so now by being close to home, there's an opportunity to recruit these players. In addition, in hockey, there's a lot of politics, and sometimes these skilled players are overlooked. And it's nice to see them have this opportunity to play and excel.
Oh, and then kind of go on to another step in their life too, if that's the educational part, going to school, or playing just higher level hockey, or just playing more hockey.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also great too for minor hockey back home. In every community that there has been the introduction of one of these teams, minor hockey has seen a boost. These young hockey players look up to the junior players. The junior players do a ton of volunteering in the community. If the Hockey Canada minor hockey is open to them helping, they've contributed a lot of their time in coaching and mentoring. So for instance, in High Prairie, there was a need for refs, there was a need for coaches, and the High Prairie Red Wings players actually ended up helping in minor hockey coaching directly, getting their respect in sports, and also reffing. So they've really impacted minor hockey, which is great because you're going to see kids invested in hockey, which is a great learning experience emotionally, physically, and also, like you said, to advance potentially to school. It keeps kids busy and occupied, which helps them make good decisions, teaches them teamwork. And it's nice to see, too, when these players do advance. For instance, Larry Yellowknee, he's done really well back in his community of High Prairie. Think about the impact on all those young kids with someone to look up to. And Larry is First Nations, and he's made it. And for instance, I had a couple players scholarship last year. So now other kids are like, hey, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Keeps people more focused on their school. It's an all-around win.
So besides the Ice Dogs, what is there in Slave Lake for, for like, do they have a senior team? Is there anywhere else for these kids to go besides the Ice Dogs after they're done their midget year?
So there used to be a senior team, and unfortunately, they're not in operation. And at one time, they were trying to start a junior B team, and they weren't in operation. So Alberta is full of hockey towns. Slave Lake is a hockey town. They love their hockey. They didn't have a junior B team. They didn't have a senior team. It's a great community to put a team in. Part of the reason why Derek reached out to the GMHL to expand was the AJ doesn't look to expand. By expanding more teams, it dilutes the value of each team that is currently in operation for a resale value. So sometimes I find with Hockey Canada, there's a bit of pushback. They want to ensure that these new leagues don't operate within their footprint. So they might encourage, let's say, minor hockey to not come to the games, not support the games, not ref the games, which is unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's about hockey and it's about the kids. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is the AJ is not going to come to Slave Lake. The GMHL came to Slave Lake, and we're doing a great job. We've advanced players. We've advanced players that are from Slave Lake, and we're committed to volunteering and investing in the community, which has been great to see. And it's also nice to see that people are starting to open their minds and their hearts to non-Hockey Canada play. The mayor of Slave Lake, Tyler Warman, wrote an excellent letter on our behalf talking about the positive impact that we've provided to the community, the pride we've brought to the community, as well as the pride the players have invested back into the community with their volunteer hours. Last season, we invested thousands of dollars and more than 200 hours back into the community, and we love doing it. And it's such a good learning experience for the players. It also gives them an opportunity to spend their time with the young kids, and it just full circle is a great synergy. That's why I love our team and I love hockey, is I love to see the impact the players have on young kids. And I also love to see that the impact that the young kids have on the players. It's nice to see after a game, young kids waiting for an autograph and how it makes those players feel great. And I'm just so proud of our boys. We have such fantastic kids on our team. These young men are role models. They're diligent, they're driven, they're nice kids. And I'm so happy we have this opportunity to have the GMHL so that they can play. Like you said, they want to play. And it's so nice to see, and it's nice to see them advance. I love to see kids that might not have continued with their schooling continue with their schooling or make better choices.
What kind of, like you were talking about the volunteering that happens, that the team does in Slave Lake. What kind of things does your program and the boys, what do they do to give back to
Okay,
the city of Slave Lake?
That's an excellent question. I'm so happy to talk about it. Okay, this season, unfortunately, due to COVID, we haven't done much volunteering, which has been really unfortunate because it is a huge part of what we do. So I'll talk about last season without COVID. We donated money to the food bank, the boys at concerts, because there's great arts and community in Slave Lake. It's pretty progressive and metropolitan for a small town. They made hot chocolate and sold that at concerts, and they put that money towards the food bank. They carried out groceries at all the local grocery stores, No Frills, Sobeys, as well as Walmart. They read to kids in schools. This year, their plan was to adopt a classroom. Each boy would have their own classroom, but unfortunately, we couldn't do it. There was a local family and a volunteer where unfortunately their daughter hit a moose and she became paralyzed. We paid for the hotel for the family for a week so that they could be there with her. We did a big fundraiser on their behalf and raised thousands of dollars for upgrading the home of this young person. The boys are doing free hockey clinics for minor hockey. We did free family skates. We did a skills competition where kids from minor hockey could come and compete for prizes for skills. We did volunteering with the 4-H, which I absolutely adore 4-H. The Northern Lights 4-H, we did, we volunteered to judge their speaking competitions, and we had a joint event with them. We volunteered at the seniors' home, carving pumpkins with them, like so many things, and we absolutely loved it. Oh, we even did at the hospital. It was so fun. At the hospital, we did a floor hockey game with long-term residents. It was so fun.
Well, that's why I love about small towns, especially when you have a junior A hockey team in a small town like Slave Lake. It's just hearing all these stories from what the boys did last year. It's just it's awesome to hear. The give back that seems like your team has done through all that.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that compliment, and that is really one thing that we absolutely love. It definitely makes it rewarding. It's one of my favorite things about being involved in hockey.
Well, and I did see your video on Facebook about talking about when you're judging the 4-H. Was it the speaking competition?
Speeches, yeah.
Speeches, so, yeah, the 4-H speeches.
In 4-H, you're required to do public speaking. It's like one of the fundamentals. It's really good for them, and it was hard to judge because the kids are so cute, the young ones, and if they don't do well, they cry. But I luckily had to judge the older kids who can handle the judging process a little bit more. I was in 4-H, so I remember what it felt like to be on the other end.
Yeah, no, my dad's big into 4-H back home, so I think 2 of my sisters were in 4-H, and then I was just like, no, I want to play hockey. So I didn't go that route, but my dad's big into 4-H, so I understand that whole doing the speeches. It's a big part of it.
And at hockey, there's a lot of speaking too, and I'm sure you did a lot of volunteering yourself, and it gives you such well-rounded skills. So you certainly picked a great thing to get involved in. Hockey's wonderful.
Well, and like from what you've been saying, these first 20 minutes, it seems like, yeah, you're developing these kids to be better hockey players, but you're also developing them to be great young men.
Yes, and especially with our age demographic. So the GMHL can allow 16-year-olds up and including 21-year-olds. We're one of the only leagues that allow 21-year-olds. So a typical business model for the GMHL team is to have the development, but at the same time, there's an athletic component and there's an educational component. So we do have players in high school. They do half-day high school and half-day hockey. So we've introduced an academic coordinator, tutoring, and somebody to monitor their marks as well as their attendance, because the goal of our team specifically is to get university scholarships. We need them to do well in school to achieve that goal. Plus, obviously, we want them to do well in life. Some teams, their goal is to advance players back into the elite hockey stream, whether they be playing in Hockey Canada Junior A or Major Junior or potentially pro. Every team has their own agenda, and ours is very focused on scholarships. Therefore, it's very important for them to do well in school. In Slave Lake, there's 2 different schools that they can go to. There is an outreach school that has about 60 attendees. It's very personalized. You can actually attend outreach school in person or just do it online. And it's grades 7 to 12. And there's also the Roland Missioner High School. It's a secondary school, 7 to 12. Great schools, both of them. So we have players in both the outreach and in the in-person high school with the traditional high school. They do high school in the morning, and then at lunchtime they have lunch, and then they come to practice. A typical day for our players, we have practice at 2 o'clock. It's an hour and 15 minutes. We have practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, right after practice, we do yoga. We have a 1-hour guided yoga session. Tuesdays, they do 1-hour CrossFit at Slave Lake CrossFit, which is fantastic for them. Wednesdays, they do game video, and then they work out doing weightlifting at Champions Gym. It's a 24-hour fitness facility. They have passes too. And then Thursdays, they do a guided stretch with Ula. She's our team trainer, and she's also an athletic rehabilitation specialist. So they do a deep stretch to prepare for games on Friday. And then Friday, they have games, and Saturdays and Sundays off. So it's a fully packed schedule. Periodically, we'll also be doing nutrition classes, life skills classes. I'd like to be teaching the boys how to cook, do their own laundry, things like that that would be useful to them. And then their billet homes where they live provides them that added level of support. It also gives them an opportunity to meet people in the community. Now, because of COVID, this season, all of our players are in a bubble. They're only allowed to socialize within the team. The kids that go to school obviously interact with players, other people, at school, but outside of that, they're only allowed to spend time with players on the team and their billets. Right now, we're not allowing boys to go home. That being said, we did do break for this COVID-related Alberta break. When they come back, they'll be tested and then go back into the bubble.
Well, it seems like from like these kids are getting great opportunities, not only on the ice, but also in the classroom as well, to make them an all-around student to get that scholarship to go play higher level hockey. But it's everybody's favorite time of the show. It is commercial time here on the Primetime Alberta Sports Show. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how our little friend COVID had came into play this season. Obviously ruining everything and all sports. But so we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back on the Primetime Alberta Sports Show. I'm with my very wonderful guest, Lauren Barr, from the Slave Lake Icedogs from the Greater Metro Junior A Hockey League. So we did talk about the league and the team before the break. Now I really want to know, what kind of measures did the team have to take with COVID, and how did COVID come into play this season, and what has the team done to, help out with the effort?
For sure. Well, obviously, the most important thing is the well-being of the players and therefore the community. So we want to make sure that everybody's safe and well. So we worked with the league, and the league has actually hired a COVID specialist. His name is Mel. I can't remember his last name at this moment, but his full-time job with the league is to be up to date on the safest measures for playing hockey, as well as to communicate with the teams and make sure everyone's in compliance. So we were very proactive when it came to COVID. Obviously, at the end of last season, we weren't able to finish our playoffs. The Slave Lake Icedogs had the bye because we had 15 points ahead of all the other teams, but we couldn't finish playoffs. So we won our regular season championship cup, but we couldn't do playoffs. So we already knew that maybe COVID was going to be an issue, so we had a lot of time to prepare. We decided to continue to recruit all throughout summer as if there wouldn't be COVID and deal with it as it came. While we were doing that, the league, the GMHL, was in preparations to make sure that we could operate. So they were working with Health Canada and Alberta Health to make sure we could. So there's a few different things that you have to do to be operating. First of all, we're privileged to be operating during COVID, and we see it that way. So we want to make sure we're in compliance. There is the Canadian government restrictions, number one. There is the Alberta government restrictions, number two. There's the league restrictions, number three. And then there's the municipalities. Every municipality can interpret the rules a little bit differently, rules that are a little bit needing to be interpreted. So every step of the way, we have to be in compliance. So what we did was, our league rules are actually more significant than not Hockey Canada, than the Alberta government and the Canadian government. Our players have to arrive only 15 minutes before they're to take the ice in their facility. They have to sanitize upon entry. Right from the get-go, even though it wasn't required in Slave Lake, our players are wearing masks when they enter the facility. They enter together, they go to the dressing room. Now they're in a bubble, which is called a cohort. That's what they use, is the terminology, which means a group of, like, let's say, people that work together or commune together. So in the dressing room, they cannot wear masks and be in close proximity because they're only encountering each other. But we cannot provide them water bottles. They have to provide their own water bottle, and it needs to be labeled so that nobody's touching each other's water bottles. They cannot release any of their personal fluids, so spitting on the ice, coughing or sneezing. If they cough or sneeze, or let's say puke on the ice, 100% they're in quarantine and getting tested. And we took this very seriously. Unfortunately, when we first started training camp, there was a few puking on the ice incidences because obviously we were flogging them with heavy duty skates. And those boys had to be quarantined and tested. But so we're monitoring their health. Once they enter the facility, we have to do what's called COVID tracing. So there's a binder, and they have to answer a questionnaire every single time they enter as a group. Every single time they enter the facility, any single time that they're called to group together. So we COVID traced them. We had them wearing masks before it was required. We had them sanitizing, and we were only together when required. So if we have to meet the players, we'll typically do it over FaceTime or Facebook video chat. We started a group chat to keep them in communication. Well, because we can't just have a player meeting. It doesn't work that way. But we were still able to maintain our additional development program, the yoga, the CrossFit, etc. But again, we just do our COVID tracing binder before we do that. The thing that became new, and the GMHL was on top of that, was temperature testing. So then we started temperature testing as well. So it's very strict measures. And if anyone is presumed sick, comes into contact with anyone that they presume sick, coughs, sneezes, any of the symptoms, 100% they're quarantined and tested before they can return to play. So it's very strict, and it's great because the Slave Lake Icedogs have had 0 cases of COVID, and the team is healthy, everybody's safe, it's been great. We also have restrictions as it pertains to fans. We can only have a maximum of 100 fans. We could have had alcohol at our games, but the Slave Lake Icedogs decided not to provide that because we wanted to make sure people were following the rules, and it's a lot easier if people are not drinking. We also required our guests to wear masks as they entered. Again, not a restriction at the time, but now is. We COVID trace the volunteers and the fans. We only allow 100, and they have to be separate from one another in family groups. So between each row, There is between each row, there's 6 feet. As well, with the 100 fans, obviously it creates a problem financially, but the benefit of being GMHL and the fact that we can continue to operate is our players do pay a fee, which we call a tuition, to be a part of our program, because it is a program. It's not just a team. If it was a typical team, you'd be practicing once a week, playing games, let's say during the week. You'd be tired. You wouldn't be able to practice the next day. Our players enter a program. It costs a great deal of money to put on this program. And we're insulated from this COVID pandemic based on that fact, because we can operate, because we can financially operate even without fans, or a very limited amount of fans. So it's great. And the Slave Lake Icedogs at the beginning of the season required everyone to have season tickets, because we didn't really want to have to go through the process of educating everyone as they entered. But then we realized that some people couldn't afford season tickets, and it limited their ability to watch the games. So we have a limited amount of walk-up. And we've been able to operate, and we're really happy that we can. It's great for the boys. We're one of the only leagues that have operated. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know the WHL league. They had about 3 different start dates. The BCHL, they kind of played, but they only played, I think, exhibition games. The OHL, I don't think even started. The Q started, and geez, that's about. They were getting really hit with COVID too, so they had to shut down. But it seems like, obviously, if you didn't have any cases, you guys took it very seriously, which is good. You know, the worst thing is having to cancel games because half your team has COVID because they went out to the bar the night before. And
yeah, I'm really proud of the Icedogs. The boys have taken it very seriously. We have very mature players. We have quite a number of 21-year-olds. And we also have players that take it seriously, and they're here to advance, and they listen and they follow the rules. And it's really nice to see. I'm very proud of our players. Each one of them are very diligent.
And you know, like you were saying, you could only have so many fans at each game. Do you guys have like a streaming service that you have to stream your game? So if people can't make it, they can still watch the game?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you just then. I apologize.
Oh, I was just curious because you were saying that not like, you know, with only having 100 people allowed in the stands, there is, do you guys have like a streaming service with the
Oh,
league
yes, absolutely.
to stream the games for people?
Yes, so all of our games are live streamed on gmhl.tv. So it's www.gmhl.tv, and it's free. You don't need a subscription. You can just go on and watch the games. It's great. The reason that the GMHL does it is a few reasons. One, for insurance. Two, for recruiting and for scouting. So I've had a number of universities already reach out to me. For instance, Calvin University in the States just reached out and asked me about a couple players. They watched them in the game. So people can watch those games, families, which is also convenient, fans even in the Slave Lake area, and universities or pro teams jump in and those recruiters watch. So people can watch our games. We typically last season had about 400 people at the games. So this season with only 100, it was limited. And then the government released a little bit. We're now at 150. Junior and collegiate and professional teams were allowed to increase the cohort, which allowed us to not just play one team, because at the start of the season we had to play one team for 4 games, break for 2 weeks, get tested, play a new team. Now we can actually play all 4 teams, so that's great too.
So how was the first, I guess, because you guys played 8 games this season, how was that adapting with this whole pandemic that we're in? How was that for the team and for the boys?
Well, unfortunately, when you play one team quite a bit, you start to build up a few little animosities. And so this season, due to COVID, there's 0 fighting. We're a non-fighting league anyways, but if someone fought, they would get a 5-minute major misconduct and removed from the game. But this season, if you fight, you're removed from the league, period. So very serious consequences. So it was difficult because some of the teams get a bit mouthy, and egg each other on. So by the fourth game, they definitely did not like one another. So that made it a bit tricky. So it was nice when we have all four teams to shake it up a bit, because playing one team for a long period of time can definitely create some tensions.
Well, and it's yeah, you do create tensions, but then it's just like you see the same players on any given night, and it's nice to have a change every now and then.
It's also nice to see how you fit in. Like our first four games, we killed the Ice Kings, and then we played High Prairie, and they had a few players that had deferred from the WHL. They had some players that, like I said, went to the East Coast League, so they had some really strong forwards. And we were like, okay, wait, maybe we're not 100% the best. Maybe we do need to work on a few things. We also had a bit of a disadvantage at the start of the season because I had hired a coach from Sweden, and he couldn't get across. So we were without a coach for quite a while. And so working on systems, we were a bit delayed because truly, in my opinion, we have the best players of all the teams in the division. We have quite a few players that deferred from college. We have very skilled players. Players like Bryce Young, who played in the MJ, is playing for us, or Shea Sommerfeld, who was the captain of the Red Lake Miners last season. Excellent players. Ethan Stuckless also deferred from Portage College. And we have Carson Lux, who's a fantastic defenseman. We also have a lot of wonderful players that are younger that will be the top line players next season, let's say. So we had great players, and we kind of did them a disadvantage by not having excellent coaching in place right away, which is too bad. But we corrected that. We now have a new head coach and GM. His name's Greg Kennedy. He's coached at a university level. He has 30 years experience. He is the guy. So now we've got our coaching perfectly in line. We have Kevin McClelland, four-time Stanley Cup champion from the Oilers, as an advisor to Greg. We have Greg as our head coach with the experience. Tyson Price, an associate coach, is very dedicated to our program, as well as one of our alumni from last season, Travis Wakefield, is an assistant coach. So we have great coaching, we have great development, we have a lot of ice time, we have the supplementary athletic program with the other types of fitness and stretching. We have a wonderful trainer. So we have everything in line. So now we're excited, as soon as this lockdown ends on January 10th, to go back and get our shit together, basically, and show these other teams what we're about.
Well, and on that note, you bringing up Greg Kennedy, that's actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about. But before that, it's how we make our money here on Amateur Sports TV. It's the famous commercial break. So when we come back, I'm just gonna dive into Greg Kennedy, see how he's fitting in with the team, kind of what his background is, what his goals are for the team, his coaching strategy, that sort of thing. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. Okay, and we are back on the Primetime Alberta Sports Show with my guest, Lauren Barr. Before the break, we kind of just dove into the team a little bit, talked about how COVID has, like everything, screwed everything up, how they've been able to handle and what they've had to do to overcome COVID. And now we're going to talk about their head coach. So their head coach is Greg Kennedy. From the research that I've done, he's coached hockey at a very elite level for many years. So how did that whole process go of you getting Greg to come from Ontario out to Alberta to coach the team?
Oh, that's a good question. I put an ad on Indeed, and I really wanted to make sure that we hired someone with a lot of experience, because I was more attracted to a bit of a younger coach that was a little bit more progressive, that was open to different types of training, and It didn't work out very well for us. And then I realized that we really needed someone with sound systems and a lot of experience because we had some really great players on the team and we needed that experience to provide them extra value. They're paying for this value. And I wanted to make sure that the experience level that we had on the team would not only attract new players, but would really develop these players. And I went through a number of resumes. Sometimes you'll see players that have done really well in their career and played NHL or played pro, and then they want to start coaching. And obviously their experience is fantastic, and that's the type of coach that I had been looking at, but maybe they can't communicate that on the ice well or educate players well. So I decided to go with someone with a proven track record, and Greg's resume is literally amazing. Not only has he coached for 30 years, but he's coached even at a university level. He's coached 3 different junior A teams. He has not only done that, but he's trained lots of coaches, and he's provided coaching clinics. He's providing referee clinics. He is a speaker for TSN. He has been sought out as a correspondent for his expertise, and he's very passionate about furthering his education and staying on top. So maybe he's coached for 30 years, but he's very progressive. So he was kind of the perfect balance of experience, open-mindedness, and staying current. He also is a very good speaker. He's extremely well-spoken. He's had a radio show, and he holds himself really well. So I felt that he would do really well in the community. And he's also very excited about volunteering. So I really liked that because that was one of the things he asked. What have we done for volunteering? Can I focus on that? I was like, by all means, yes. So I really liked him, and he's proven to be the real deal. Sometimes with coaches, you don't really know until they get on the ice. And that was the experience I had. Sometimes people look good on paper, they can't gain the confidence of the team, or they're not committed enough and they just do the bare minimum. And we wanted to have the best program in the GMHL, and I feel that we do. And now we have the coaching support that is just full circle. Tyson is an amazing coach, but he was new to coaching, and now we have this perfect marriage of experience, youth, development, expertise, consultants. We really have the full package. We have a really full, dynamic, robust staff that can provide everything for these kids. And over this Christmas break, I've worked really diligently on other aspects that we wanted to introduce to the team, the tutoring, some other things to really provide more value. We've also been working with Peak Performance Hockey School to provide hockey education to younger kids that will provide an income stream for some of these hockey players in the off season so that they can introduce their talents to younger set of generation, as well as we're working with an agency so that players that want to advance and maybe they don't want to go the university route will have an opportunity to play pro. So I'm really excited about Greg, and unfortunately due to this recent lockdown in Alberta, he only was really working a week on the ice before as he came to Alberta, but he has been fantastic. The boys love him. They respect him. He's gotten along fantastically with the team that we had in place from a staffing element. And he's answers his phone. He does his work. He excels my expectations. And I'm really pleased with him.
Well, and that's the main thing that you need with a coach is you need the guys to respect him, because if they don't respect him, they're just going to do what they want, and they're not going to be able to play as a team. So it seems like you said you've found that winning formula with having a great coach, a skilled team. Now you get to put all that into play, hopefully in the new year.
Yes, 100%.
And what's his coaching strategy? Like, is he offensive guy, defensive, kind of a mixture of both? Tough on the power play, kind of go for it. Kind of what's his strategy?
To be honest with you, it's too new for me to comment on that because I told him to do what he thinks is best, and I haven't yet seen him coach a game. But I think that we definitely needed to focus on our defense, and that's where he started. So I'm excited to see what that translates to.
Well, I guess once we get back from hopefully this lockdown ends when it says it's supposed to end, get and play some hockey. So that's very exciting. I know you're probably itching at the bit to get back on the ice.
Yes, definitely. I'm excited for January 10th for sure.
Well, what we're gonna do before we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and I know that they're quite close together, but I really wanted to talk to Lauren about herself and kind of what got her into being, wanting to be a president of I would say an expansion league out into Alberta. So when we come back from our commercial break, I'm going to talk to Lauren about Lauren. And welcome back on the Primetime Alberta Sports Show with my guest Lauren Barr. And to finish the show off, I just kind of wanted to talk to Lauren about Lauren. She's talked about the team, she's talked about the league, talked about COVID. Now, I really just want to talk about who she is and kind of what made her, what her background is, what she kind of wanted to do to become a president of this team and help bring this league out to Alberta. So, Lauren, my first question for you is kind of what made you want to be president of the Slave Lake Icedogs?
Thanks, Jay. Well, I kind of fell into it. I was volunteering for the Cold Lake Wings, which was with the WSHL. And my background was in marketing. And so I was able to provide some volunteering support to get sponsors, as well as organizing the attendance for the games and marketing the team in general. And at the time, I was seeing some of the staff that I just didn't feel like were doing an adequate job. It resulted in some unsuccessful events for the team. And I thought to myself, if this was my team, I would do it very differently. And I thought that, I could really do a good job with this because with my marketing background, I thought, a team is just like an event. You're marketing this team and you're marketing your players. I can market things. So I think I could do this. As Derek was expanding the league, he was unable to find an owner for the Slave Lake franchise. And I asked him if I could do it. And he said, sure. And I said, okay, let's give it a roll. And I was very successful. Unfortunately, just between the WSHL and the GMHL parting ways, there was a bit of difficulty in the first season. But again, I was the right person for that because in my life I've faced adversity before, and I'm not the type that is easily afraid of a challenge, and I don't give up. I will push through any obstacle, and I did that exact thing with the team. We had a successful first season. We won our championship, and I was very proud of the result. It was difficult because of the conflict between the leagues. I lost my entire team and my coach about a week before we were to operate, so I had nothing besides the franchise. But what I did, and this is what I actually feel like that happening was a blessing, is one, I learned some really valuable skills. Two, I got thicker skin. But three, I learned how to player recruit because I needed players. And I became a fantastic player recruiter. I absolutely love player recruiting. It's one of my favorite things to do. I 100% kick ass at it. And I think that's what makes it really unique because as a woman, it's very uncommon to be in the hockey business. I didn't know anything about hockey. So some people, didn't love that about me. But at the end of the day, you can learn those things. I learned about hockey. What you can't learn is to be diligent, to be, a strong person in the face of adversity, to make things happen at all costs. I had that, And now I know a lot about hockey, and I love it. I love our team, and I love our program, and I love seeing the boys advance, and I love seeing their lives change, and I love the kids. I don't have any kids, but I absolutely love kids. And so spending time with these young people is just such a blessing. So it's literally, I feel like all my work experience over my life, I was involved in the Grand Prix, car racing. I used to own a modeling agency. I opened restaurants and nightclubs. I've done a lot of things. And all of those skill sets have just perfectly complemented owning a team. And I feel like it was just meant to be.
You can't go wrong with that. It's like you said, you can learn the game, but you can't learn the skills of being a president, overnight. Obviously, like you said, done all those things to lead you up for that. What is your, like? Let's say if COVID didn't come, what was your 5-year plan for the team?
Oh my God, I love this question. So if COVID didn't come, this year would have been great. We would have been flourishing in all aspects. This year has been a bit of a challenge, but we are still operating and we're doing well. Our bills are all paid. I'm proud of us. We have great players. We have a great coach. We have a great team. So mission accomplished. My 5-year plan, had this not happened, we recently acquired the Peak Performance Hockey School, which would be a U18 hockey school. My goal is I'm working with Kevin McClelland on this. We are going to provide hockey camps for young kids, coached by Kevin, as well as our full coaching staff and players. So if there wasn't COVID restrictions right now, we would be conducting camps all over Canada. In addition, we want to partner with the High Prairie School Division, which is the Slave Lake School Division, to provide a hockey academy, a half-day program of hockey, a half-day program of school for kids in elementary school and in junior high. So that would be phase 2. We recently purchased a large house right on the lake that's a 12-bedroom house where we have some of our players billeted, supervised by Tyson Price and his wife. And this house will provide off-season a way for the kids that are coming into town for the camp to be in a great environment, have their own bedroom. We're going to be doing on-lake activities like wakeboarding, as well as conditioning these players. So we'd be doing our camps, the school, conditioning, as well as we're opening the Peak Performance Hockey Agency, where we'd be recruiting players to sell within the network of the UPSHL, the WSHL, as well as the GMHL, advancing players onto pro and college with our own connections. Just like with recruiting, I just learned it's about advertising. So last season, we led the division in player advancements because we advertised our players really well. So we want to get involved in every facet of hockey. So we would have, and we are still on track to do that, just not this year. Our 5-year plan would be in 5 years, we'd have the hockey camps, the hockey school, which would be the academy style. We would have the agency, as well as the off-season conditioning for players introduced to junior A hockey so they could get ready for the season. And then within 5 years, we also want to open another franchise in the GMHL in Western Division. So, and I think we're on track to do that.
So if like for maybe people that don't know where Slave Lake is and how big it is, how big of a city is Slave Lake compared to other places in Alberta, and
Sure.
like how many people?
Okay, so Slave Lake is 2.5 hours north of Edmonton. So you would fly into Edmonton. If you're a player, we'll pick you up. But by driving, it's 2.5 hours. About an hour before you reach Slave Lake, all of the drive goes from being kind of prairies to forest. It's absolutely stunning drive. It's also a really safe drive because it's twin laned. But honestly, it is so beautiful. There's so many gorgeous trees, and there's a lot of hunting, and there's a lot of forest excavation for logging. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area, kind of hilly, gorgeous trees, lots of nature. And Slave Lake is right on Lesser Slave Lake, which is a huge lake. A lot of ice fishing happens there, a lot of regular season fishing, boating, wakeboarding, water skiing. It's stunning. When I actually visited the lake in Slave Lake, that's when I knew, like, wow, I want to live here. I love this place. It's so nice. And I like the people. They are very cosmopolitan. Based on the fact that there's a thriving oil business and logging business, people that are attracted to live in Slave Lake have traveled. They know what tastes good. Therefore, there's lots of beautiful restaurants in Slave Lake. There's ethnic restaurants in Slave Lake. For a town of 6,000, that's pretty cool. There's also really cute little boutiques. As well, the slogan of Slave Lake is the jewel of the North, and it really is. And the mayor of Slave Lake, along with council, has invested a lot of money in the infrastructure. So there's an absolutely amazing public library.
Sorry, we're going to need you out.
And sorry.
Thank you.
And sorry guys, due to COVID, I'm stuck in a corridor here. And there's also it's absolutely beautiful there, truly. And they've done a really good job with all the amenities that they have. And there's big box retailers too, like Walmart, for instance. And what else do they have? Canadian Tire. So things that you would typically want to see, you can see there, Boston Pizza, etc.
All the small town jewels of places, like a Boston Pizza and a Canadian Tire.
Right.
But it seems like, from what you've told me, the community has definitely grown to love the Ice Dogs. And before we finish things off, I have to ask, how did you come up with the name Ice Dogs?
We actually did. It's a good question. We did a contest, and it was actually decided by the residents of Slave Lake. So we picked the top 3 names, and we did an online poll, and they picked the name Slave Lake Icedogs. And there was actually 3 residents that had put forward that name. A woman named Kelly, and Boyd Kellum, and Lauren Goodman. Lauren Goodman is a grandfather, and he's been a big supporter of the team. He comes to the games, buys the hats. Boyd is a big hockey supporter, as is Kelly. They come to the games. So the 3 of them all came up with that name independently. And so when it was selected at the first game, we had all 3 drop the puck because really they came up with the name, and the residents of Slave Lake picked it.
Well, and also before we leave, where you're talking about some hats, and so you guys do have your own merchandise for sale. And if people are interested in buying that, where could they go?
Good
or even
question.
just to learn more about the team?
100%. So our Facebook page is very active. www.facebook.com/Slave Lake Icedogs. You can just search Slave Lake Icedogs. Icedogs is one word. As well as our website, www.slavelakeicedogs.com. You can buy merchandise right on the website and have it shipped to you.
Well, Lauren, I really appreciate your time here on the Primetime Alberta Sports Show. You know what, you were great, and you kind of explained and showed us another league, a development league that probably not a lot of people have heard of out here in Western Canada. I just wanted to say, I hope in the new year, I wish you good luck, and Merry Christmas.
Same to you, and thank you so much for having me on the show. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Jay.
Okay, and it was great talking to you, learning more about the Greater Metro Junior A Hockey League.
Yes, thank you.
So that concludes the Primetime Alberta Sports Show for today. I really hope you guys tune in every Tuesday. Obviously, with the Christmas holidays, we won't be jumping back into it until the new year. But I really hope you guys tune in every Tuesday night for the Primetime Alberta Sports Show. And I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.